the state was discharged from the state isolation center. The new case was part of the 117 cases reported in the country by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control yesterday. Of the 117 cases, 59 were recorded in Lagos, 29 in the FCT, 14 in Kano, 6 in Borno, 4 in Katsina, 3 in Ogun, and 1 in Bauchi and Rivers State. So far, the 782 COVID-19 cases have been recorded in Nigeria, with 25 deaths and over 190 recoveries. The immediate past publicity secretary of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State, Chris Fiden, says the establishment of a task force to man the state borders on weekend will amount to exposing innocent young men to danger. Feinbone described the move by the governor as another misstep, while acknowledging that the security agencies sometimes falter when needed the most. Feinbone admonished the governor not to resort to self-help.
Well, it will be another misstep on the part of the governor to embark on such dangerously ignorant line of action. More so, it will amount to exposing innocent young men who will constitute the boundary task force to enormous danger. There is no doubt that our security agencies sometimes falter when needed most, but that should not be a reason to resort to self-help. Let the governor continue to work with security agents towards enforcing boundary lockdown. Opening another flank offensive with the federal security agencies at this time is highly unnecessary. It is even more needless to create a situation that will endanger the lives of innocent young men in the name of task force on borders. I expect reasonable elders around the governor to advise him.
On the foreign scene, the death toll from the worst mass shooting in Canada's modern history, a 14-hour rampage over the weekend, has risen to 22 from 19. The victims include a 17-year-old, a pregnant healthcare worker, and a veteran Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer. Authorities are yet to determine the motive for the crime, but the police said the gunman knew some of the victims. The gunman, a 51-year-old man, was killed in a confrontation with the police. And that was the news update on Today95.1 FM. Do not forget, take responsibility. Wash your hands frequently with soap under running water. If you can't do that, always have with you at all times alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Avoid touching your face and eye contact surfaces to prevent coronavirus. And do stay at home if you can. Otherwise, please do observe social distancing. Good afternoon. I am Kala Dakaribatbo.
Today's news, today's entertainment, today's sports, today's issues. Today on Today 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt.
Have you heard that coronavirus has been confirmed in Nigeria?
My brother, don't panic. The Federal Ministry of Health and Nigeria Center for Disease Control have advised that everyone should do the following to stay safe.
Tell me.
Wash your hands regularly with soap under running water. Use hand sanitizer if there is no water. Cover mouth with bent elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose the used tissue and wash your hands immediately. Avoid touching eyes, nose, mouth with unwashed hands. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces such as door locks, tables, and chairs.
You don't mean it.
Avoid close contact with sick persons or anybody coughing or sneezing.
Please, Mary, what are the symptoms of coronavirus?
Any person infected with coronavirus can have fever, cough, difficulty in breathing, and shortness of breath.
Don't panic. Coronavirus is preventable. If you have traveled to any country with reported local or community transmission, stay indoors and away from people for 14 days. If you develop any of the symptoms mentioned above, call the Nigeria Center for Disease Control NCDC toll-free line 0800-97000010. Share information about coronavirus only from verified sources like the Federal Ministry of Health, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, and the World Health Organization WHO. This message is from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control NCDC, the Federal Ministry of Health, and partners.
This is today's hustle. One show that embodies objectivity. We raise the bar in examining the good, the bad, the sordid, everything that has to do with society.
In America, you buy a big house and you pay gradually for 30 years of your life. That is politics. In Nigeria, you carry out your salary and go and rent one room. Bad politics.
Everything that has to do with
you
society.
must negotiate. If we don't negotiate, when a man is pushed to the wall, he bounces back with double efforts. We have been pushed to the wall.
The Hustle. Every weekday from
1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
on Today 95.1 FM.
All right. It is another edition of today's hustle, reaching you live from the Garden City here in Rivers State. And on the Wednesday edition of today's hustle, what we actually do is on the first half, we dedicate it to talking business. Business today, we call it. So we will be looking at the economic situation in Nigeria and probably extending it to the rest of the world, right? So it's business today. On today, 95.1 FM, the voice of the people. Yes, your premium talk radio station. But before I go into the day's activity, I'd like to ask you, how are you faring? How are you coping? How are you enjoying or enduring the lockdown in certain sectors of the society? Really, how are you coping economically, financially? I really do hope you're doing well. From my heart, I'm reaching out to you, or from Today 95.1 FM, on behalf of Today 95.1 FM, I'm reaching out to you, and I really do hope that you have a splendid time. And if you're not, that somehow you find the strength to weather the storm. But let's talk some economics now. With me in the studio are the wonderful colleagues of mine, Wealth Wilson and Bulu Ajayi. Good afternoon to you guys.
Good afternoon, Kalada.
And yet they mentioned my name, the man of the people. I am Kalada, and let's dive straight into politics. Now, for a while now, we've been talking about the economics that relates to the COVID-19 era, and for a while we've been saying, how do we cope? How do we survive? And we've shared ideas, we've rubbed minds, we've brought about opinions. And it is wonderful that there is an economic team, headed by the vice president. We'll be talking about that shortly. It is very important that there is that team. But what really is of concern to me, yet again, is the fact that more people are losing their jobs. More people, are being laid off. Businesses are closing down. But I do remember. Now, at the beginning of the COVID-19 era or season, government came out and said that there were plans. CBN governor came out and said that there were plans reeled out for businesses, so to say. And then last week, I was reading, I did realize that some of those plans have stringent measures, very stringent measures. And some of those measures are that, you have to, I don't know how true that report is. I've not seen the government come out to debunk it. But you must pay 10,000 naira, as guarantee to show that your business was thriving before the COVID-19 era began. You must be in certain industries. Where is it again? Let me look for that report so I can read it out. You must be in certain. I can't find it all of a sudden, but you must be in certain industries, And then I'm looking at this other report coming out from The Guardian, in the International Guardian newspaper, and it's saying that U.S. Senate passes $500 billion small business aid package. And now this package will be for businesses. They'll be sending monies to small businesses to ensure that these businesses can thrive. We emulate these guys in everything. We emulate when they said work from home, we said work from home. When they said lockdown, we quickly said lockdown. When they said chloroquine, the chloroquine that we were kicking against, we said chloroquine. Should we be emulating them also when it comes to this kind of economic stimulus, given the fact, like I said, businesses are closing? I mean, was it 2 weeks ago when we did the poll and we asked them, say, how are you faring? How are your businesses faring? And a lot of people called in with sad news. Should we be having these politicians, so to say, these political elites, come out and say, okay, fine, let's emulate what the United States is doing? And the United States is not the first country doing it. The UK has also done the same thing. They have a business stimulus for small, medium-scale enterprises. Question that I've been trying to answer all through today. I don't know if you guys can help me now, yeah?
Well, good afternoon once again, guys. Well, talking about things that we can do to, help us out with our economy, right? And whether or not adopting the Western
economic stimulus package, yeah,
would be a good idea. I say yes to that. See, there are two ways to approach
Do we have the money,
COVID-19. No, the thing is,
does the United States have the money?
The thing is, everybody is under pressure. The emergency level is high, so everybody's putting in everything they have to make sure that the economy, the people stay afloat, and nobody is going down the drain with the pandemic and all of that. Now, as I said, there are two things that we have to look at. First of all, the first approach to defeating COVID-19 would be the adoption of the first world strategies of social distancing, self-isolating, testing, contact tracing, quarantine, lockdown, and all of those. And then the second would be social and economic survival and recovery packages. Now we should be able to adopt without modification the economic stimulus that we see. First of all, they call it the twin strategies of providing palliatives, which is first of all the pain relief and then the economic stimulus, right? Now, according to Investopedia, when I was reading, I noticed that the economic stimulus and the pain relief involves the attempts of the government of the day to financially stimulate an economy using monetary or fiscal policies to kickstart growth during a recession, right? So apparently these are things that we have to already put in place just to make sure that we do not end up on the other side of the divide where we are broken, in recession, and without help. Because in the end of the day, every other country, every other world power will basically be trying to keep their own economy afloat, right? And when they're doing that, it would mean that they probably will pay little or less attention to third world countries. So we should try as much as we can right now to adopt most of the things that they're already putting in place. What are we putting into our economy? What are we putting into our investorships, all right? Our small scale and medium enterprises.
If I've listened to you carefully, so you're saying that government, the CBN, whatever financial agencies responsible for this should begin to pump in money for the small and medium scale businesses.
Because apparently it is the informal sector that makes up half of our economy.
I was going to say that because Nigeria thrives on entrepreneurship. So if we have the businesses, for example, the caterer, the baker, the what do you call it now? We call it fashion designers now. If you
every kind of entrepreneur.
So if you pump money into it, means that we are somewhat saving our economy in the future, because now these people will also have money for businesses. But then what do you make of some of the stringent measures that they have put in place? Because like I said, they have been asked to pay 10,000 naira. I saw that report last week. I've not been able to verify it. I mean, I've not had any financial expert in government come out to kick against it. But there was talk about 10,000 naira. Then you must have a receipt of all your transactions, financial transactions, before the COVID-19 era, and it must show that you've been having so much influx of. But then again, a lot of the informal sectors do not use banking apps. Remember when we talked about BVN?
But you just talked about receipts, right?
My point is, receipt, like banking transactions. Transactions. Remember when we talked about BVN and we said not every one of them has got a bank account. So I mean, think of it.
That would be for small scale enterprise. I feel like medium scale enterprises that have majorly youth entrepreneurs would be able to use the banking apps, the receipts, and all of that, and they probably would not be affected. So people who would be affected would be the petty traders.
Petty trader. But then we also need to boost their economy because they're also helping.
Honestly, I feel like we should even have a database of the petty traders that we have in the country, because remember there was a time where some amount of money was said to be disbursed to petty traders. I don't know if you remember how were those monies. How were they supposed to be disbursed? There must be some sort of data information about these people and how we can give these people the money. No matter how small scale a business is in the country, I feel like as a government, you should have an idea of these people. Just get their data at least, so people don't just go to lie and form receipts and forge stuff just to collect some of these monies. All right, because at the end of the day, they make a very huge part of the economy, so they deserve to be, to have their information known by the government.
All right, now some of the people, according to the central bank, eligible for the 50 billion naira targeted credit facility to households and small businesses. Now it's not medium now. They said small businesses affected by coronavirus are things like, first of all, you must be into agricultural value chain activities. That's, you must be probably a farmer, or you are into distribution of farm produce to the marketplace. Hospitality, health, that's pharmaceuticals and medical supplies. Airline service providers. Are airline service providers small scale businesses? Manufacturing and value addition and trading. So, like I said, the woman in the market, how does she get this money? Remember, they're the ones who have suffered the most because markets are locked down everywhere in the world. So how does she get the money? The man in the market, how the meat seller, how does he get his money or this money?
Trader money, how did they get their money?
Have you listened to some of them? They tell you they never got the money.
Never got the money. Well, this time around, it's not trader money. This time around, the government has to be organized and to see if the government really wants to make sure that everybody, every small scale, trader, farmer, everybody that contributes to the economy and has been affected by this pandemic gets out of this fund. All right, you have to be organized. You have to get the data. That's why I feel like data, it's too important for the government to get data of how many.
But you guys, realistically speaking, right, the government may not be able to reach out to every small scale trader.
Yeah, because 50 billion is small,
reach out
actually.
to everybody. But I'm guessing that somehow they should be able to at least match up to majority of these traders. Because we don't want a situation where somebody somewhere is embezzling the funds that at least should get to the majority of the masses and all of that. Well, a lot of people have been saying that there's no need for the economic stimulus because of the tendency of corruption, somebody siphoning this money and all of that.
Yeah.
No, honestly, we can't
rule that out.
Yeah, but then I feel like that shouldn't stop the government from trying to invest back into its economy.
Honestly, when I think about it now, honestly, I would prefer the government just builds the economy and creates industry for people.
How would the government do that right now?
No, not right now. The government can put plans in place, all right, that could, cushion the effects of this pandemic on the economy. So, and instead of giving out physical cash to people and say, oh, look, you take for your business that was affected by the virus, there's certain things the government could do that would really help the economy as a whole. And those businesses would get back on their feet without collecting money exactly from the government. Because at the end of the day, this looks like a very fat cash cow to be for some politicians somewhere to just make money from.
But somehow, if you look at it, the federal government have been able to liaise with the Central Bank of Nigeria. I think they've been giving soft loans to certain traders. The interest rates very low, if not without interest rates. I would have to verify that, but I know sometime 2 weeks ago
they reduced the interest rate actually. They reduced it by 5% or thereabout. I cannot remember now, but they did reduce it. But now let's move over now. You know how in economics, when we were in secondary school, they tell you inflation means that there's the rise in the price of goods and services in the marketplace or in the society generally. We got a report yesterday from the NBS, the National Bureau of Statistics, saying that that there was inflation. If you judge by March 2020 and March 2019. Or March 2019 and March 2020. And there was an inflation. It did rise by 12.26%. Now, the worrying thing is that, that was not affected by COVID-19. It had nothing to do with COVID-19. What I mean is COVID-19 did not affect, was not the reason for the increment or the inflation. Now, even February, the month in, month out, difference, from February to March also saw a slight increment. There was a rise in inflation. Now, judging by, what they call the urban inflation rate, it also rose. Now, I am very much concerned because this was not occasioned by COVID-19. But now we are looking at a season of COVID-19 because after March or towards the end of March, we began to see a rise, a spike in the number of COVID-19 cases, and it saw the airlines shutting down, airports shutting down, borders shutting down, marketplaces shutting down. And of course, we saw the spike, where a rubber of Gary that would have been for 500 naira began to sell for was it 1,500, 2,000 naira? And I do hear a bag of Gary. I mean, I don't really do my market stuff myself, but I do hear that a bag of Gary goes for almost 10,000 naira. So if that be the case, I mean, okay, it was VK that was mentioning, and he was asking why would such a thing happen. Now, if that be the case, what are we expecting? Are we expecting a situation where there is such a spike in the inflation levels in society by the time we get maybe the statistics for April or even May?
That could even devalue the naira.
Maybe it could. I mean, it means that we are in a very dire situation, because if we get a very high inflation, that means because when it means prices of goods and services are very high when put side by side with the currency, and it means that your currency cannot buy you enough goods and services, then there is problem. There's problem in the land.
Well, hopefully that's why we have a government to, look at all these things and make sure that we don't have problem in the land. And that's why I was happy to see that, Osibajo was, head of the economic team.
Yeah.
Also good to see him back in the news after such a very silent period.
What do you mean? Is that Yoruba thing? Is that Yoruba thing?
No, 2 weeks ago. I think last week.
Is that Yoruba thing?
You had mentioned that you've not seen him in the news in a long time.
It's not a Yoruba thing. I've not seen the vice president in it. I've not even heard. Normally, he's in times like this, if you guys would remember, in times like this, it was the one that, the government would push, and it would come out to make certain statements and calm nerves and make everybody, understand what was going on. But we hadn't heard from him in a while. I saw the pictures yesterday, heading an economic team. I think speaking with the IMF and some people. I think this is what the government needs to do. Thank God that the government has realized that. Look, I'm really happy that the government is making economic plans. The government understands that this could lead to something bad, something we don't want, honestly. I know it's the whole world that's affected by this pandemic and everything, and world economy is that's very,
it's low. It's the lowest
low right now. It's at lowest right now. So it's good to see that the government is putting plans in place and making sure that all of these funds that we are receiving, all of that some of it also should go into the economy, and making sure that businesses don't go down, making sure that people have lost their jobs already. So what the government needs to create an industry as well. The government is to, and at the same time, the government is to be responsible so that some politician somewhere doesn't use this as an opportunity to make money. Because this is what we see happen in Nigeria. I'm sure that somebody somewhere is making money off this coronavirus.
Of course.
I'm almost very certain that somebody
the person making face mask is making money.
No, I know, not in that way.
I mean, you say somebody somewhere. I'm just saying.
People are making money.
Face mask, you're making.
But what I'm trying to say is that somebody's stealing money from this pandemic.
Somebody have a point.
Exactly. So we need to make sure we need to be responsible as a government.
But now that we mentioned Oshibanjo meeting with the IMF and World Bank, Wealth was talking earlier, and she said that we need to emulate. We need to, be the copycat right now and copy some of these economic stimulus being put in place by the Western world, the Europeans and the likes, right? Oshibanjo drawing up a plan, a blueprint for our road out of Egypt and to Canaan land, so to say. Egypt was the place of sufferings and brutality and slavery, and Canaan land was the place flowing with milk and honey. So you get to understand where I'm coming from right now. So now, what do you think, if you had an opportunity to advise that team, what do you think should be included in that blueprint? Because for me, one, we should forget oil. That's me.
I was going to use that as one of my points. No, honestly, I was going to say that right now, when we're seeing a shortage, what happened with the US.
We'll talk about that one now.
I want to say that the economic team right now should speed up production and what's that thing?
Diversify?
No, not diversify. They were going to implement something with the modular refineries. What's that one?
Okay. So we should do the modular refineries.
This is the time.
Okay.
We should take advantage of the negative. Time. Yes.
So we don't get to do any business. Okay.
If we have these refineries up and running, we would be able to sell refined crude products to other African countries at this time, and which would mean that Nigeria will probably be
because they are also hit by the coronavirus. Some of them worse than South Africa, which is supposed to be the second biggest economy in Africa, is like very much affected.
Even before.
Let's forget recession now. They're very much affected by COVID-19, so they probably have all their focus on COVID-19 right now. So if we can draw up a plan, like you said, modular refineries, and
have them working,
not refinery
have them
as well.
Working.
All
Dangote
of that
and
working.
have more.
And then see how we can be able to
Dangote
supply
is a private man
even if it's
business.
just Africa.
No, it's having the government apparently he's the only one now, right? We don't have a lot of persons.
Is he the only one? He's got government money is inside that thing.
Government money is
apparently
there.
we don't have a lot of other private
All right,
investors.
all right.
You know,
Are you
who
sure
have
we don't
not
have a
lost-
lot of private investors?
No,
People have shown
in
interest,
talk about
right?
in talking
People
about I
have
understand
shown
in
interest,
refining. So she
but-
needs
Okay, but
government
they've not
to-
said it. Okay,
yeah.
all right.
As you said, people have shown interest, but then do they have the refineries yet?
Yeah,
No.
no.
Do they
That's
have
why
the
the government needs
investments
to
in
make
it?
this
No.
license really
Understand
easy
what
for
she
people
said.
to
That's
get.
what she's saying.
No, what I'm
That's
saying
what she's
is
saying.
government should speed up the
Speed up the
process of
process.
allowing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
license
All right.
That's
so
what
that
she's
we
saying.
can have a lot of this
And probably even sell the dysfunctional refineries. Yeah.
If you look at it, I don't see the world recovering from this particular heat in the next future.
Interesting.
So we can act.
Honestly,
I was thinking
any most and plans really well. Just after this virus, would really enjoy.
Not immediately after. I'm talking about
like
now.
right now. So
Yeah.
immediately after the virus is